world thought Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas were Hollywood's next power couple. But behind the cameras, something darker was happening. Overnight, the fairy tale collapsed. Calls stopped, sets went silent, and insiders say one decision changed everything. This is the shocking truth about the final days of their relationship. The part no one dared to reveal. Until now. It all began like a scene straight out of a perfect Hollywood romance. The kind that makes audiences believe in love all over again. The year was buzzing with anticipation. Two of the most magnetic stars in the world were about to share the screen for the first time. Tom Cruise, the unstoppable action icon who had defied gravity, time, and even age itself. And Ana de Armas, the Cuban-Spanish beauty whose breakout role in Knives Out had turned her into Hollywood's most intriguing new face. When their names first appeared together on a casting list for a high-profile film project, the industry went into overdrive. This, one insider said, is chemistry waiting to happen. And they weren't wrong. From day one on set, something was different. The cameras rolled, but even when the director yelled cut, the energy between Tom and Ana didn't fade. It wasn't the rehearsed kind of chemistry that actors fake for the screen. It was raw, spontaneous, and impossible to ignore. Crew members whispered about it. "They look at each other like they've known each other for years," one lighting assistant reportedly said. Another insider mentioned that even during breaks, the two often stayed close, laughing, sharing stories, and exchanging that unspoken understanding only two passionate artists could have. Soon, whispers turned into rumors, and rumors turned into headlines. Entertainment magazines began flooding with questions. Are Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas more than co-stars? Social media exploded with fan edits, paparazzi snapshots, and endless speculation. One photo in particular went viral. The two of them walking out of a cozy London restaurant, smiling under the city lights. Ana in a soft beige coat, Tom in his signature leather jacket, both laughing like teenagers. For millions of fans, that image felt like confirmation Hollywood had a new power couple. For Tom Cruise, this connection was something deeply personal. After years of keeping his private life away from the spotlight, he seemed genuinely happy again. Friends close to him said he admired Ana's confidence, her independence, and her ability to light up a room without even trying. "She makes him laugh," one insider shared, "and that's something we hadn't seen in a long time." For Ana de Armas, it felt like the start of a new chapter. She had fought hard for recognition in Hollywood, moving from Cuba to Spain and then to Los Angeles, building her career step by step. Tom's world, the fame, the luxury, the cameras, was something entirely new, but she handled it with quiet grace. She wasn't starstruck, she was curious. She respected his work ethic and admired his dedication. Together, they seemed unstoppable. Whether it was a red carpet appearance or a casual moment caught by paparazzi, their connection felt effortless. Fans described them as fire and calm, Tom's intensity perfectly balanced by Ana's warmth. But beneath the glamorous surface, the seeds of something more complex were already being planted. Tom's world was built around precision, every minute scheduled, every move calculated. Ana's world was about freedom, creativity, and living in the moment. At first, their differences made things exciting. Opposites do attract, after all. But even the strongest chemistry can face the test of reality. Still, during those early months, everything seemed perfect. They laughed between takes, spent evenings discussing movies and life, and seemed to live in a bubble far removed from Hollywood chaos. It wasn't long before Hollywood labeled them the perfect pair. Directors praised their professionalism. Fans adored their every move. The media couldn't get enough, comparing them to the great couples of Hollywood history. But as the saying goes, not every spotlight stays warm forever. Behind those dazzling smiles and red carpet poses, life was beginning to pull them in different directions. Neither of them knew it yet, but the same light that brought them together was also the one that would one day expose the cracks between them. For now, though, the world believed in their story. A story of love, laughter, and electric chemistry. It was the spark that shook Hollywood. And like every beautiful beginning, no one imagined how soon it would start to fade. From the outside, everything looked flawless. The cameras caught smiles, laughter, gentle glances, the perfect image of Hollywood love. But what the public didn't see was the quiet space between those moments, where the real story was unfolding. Behind the glamour, behind the red carpet. Flashes, Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas were slowly discovering how different their worlds truly were. Tom Cruise had built his life like one of his films, disciplined, structured, and intensely focused. Every detail of his day ran with precision. Dawn workouts, scheduled meetings, strict diets, perfectly timed rehearsals. His energy was unstoppable, almost mechanical in its perfection. For Tom, control wasn't just a habit, it was his identity. Ana de Armas, however, lived in color. She thrived on spontaneity, emotion, and creativity. Her mornings started with coffee and music, not mission plans. She loved unplanned trips, deep conversations, and moments that felt real, not rehearsed. To her, acting was about feeling. To Tom, it was about mastery. At first, these differences fascinated them. Tom found her unpredictable charm refreshing, a spark that reignited a part of him he had long buried under years of structure. Ana admired his discipline, the way he could command a room with quiet authority. Together, they seemed to balance each other. But slowly, admiration turned into misunderstanding. Ana began to feel the weight of Tom's world. His life operated on rules, unspoken expectations that demanded constant focus and perfection. Friends close to her noticed how she sometimes seemed tense before public appearances, rehearsing lines and gestures, worried about how things would look. She wanted love, not a mission briefing, one insider later joked. Tom, meanwhile, started to feel uneasy with Ana's freedom. Her ability to disconnect, to just be, made him nervous. He admired it, but he couldn't follow it. For him, every day had a purpose, every plan a goal. When Ana suggested spontaneous weekend getaways or quiet evenings with no schedule, he often hesitated. "We'll see," he'd say. And somehow those plans rarely happened. As filming on their movie ended, the shift became clearer. On set, they had been surrounded by lights, direction, and shared purpose. Off set, the scripts disappeared, and reality stepped in. Tom's home life was quiet, calculated. He was used to isolation, preparation, and constant readiness. Ana's world was alive with friends, art, travel, and laughter. The energy that had once drawn them together now started to pull them apart. The first real cracks appeared in small ways: missed calls, rescheduled dinners, long silences that neither wanted to name. Ana would wrap a long day of work and text him, only to get a polite, short reply hours later. In meetings, "Talk soon." To him, it was routine. To her, it felt like distance. Still, they tried to hold on. There were quiet nights filled with conversation about life, film, dreams, moments when it almost felt like the spark was back. But as days passed, those moments became rarer. Ana began spending more time with friends in London and Madrid, seeking normalcy. Tom, ever dedicated, was deep in preparation for his next big project, training, coordinating, planning months ahead. The distance wasn't physical at first, it was emotional. Two people, sitting side by side, but living in separate worlds. Those close to Ana noticed she had become quieter, reflective. She still cared for him deeply, one friend said, but she was losing herself trying to fit into his universe. For Tom, it wasn't about love fading. It was about fear. He'd been through public heartbreaks before, and he didn't want this one to crumble. But control couldn't save what love had already outgrown. By the time the movie's promotional tour ended, the smiles had become practiced. The laughter, softer, the closeness, measured. What the cameras captured as Hollywood perfection was, in truth, two people trying their hardest not to fall apart. They had become victims of their own differences, the very things that once made their bond magnetic. From the outside, they were still dazzling, but behind the glamour, tension had taken over, quietly, invisibly, and completely. Silence. It doesn't arrive suddenly. It builds slowly, like a quiet storm waiting to unfold. For Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas, that silence began as small pauses in their conversations, missed calls, and unanswered messages, little moments that once meant nothing but now spoke volumes. As months passed, the warmth that had once surrounded them began to fade. The couple that once shared laughter on film sets and late-night dinners in London slowly found themselves on opposite schedules, and eventually on opposite continents. Tom, ever the perfectionist, buried himself in work. He was deep in training for his next action blockbuster, another high-octane Mission Impossible film. His days were filled with planning, rehearsals, and meetings. To him, keeping busy was survival. It was how he'd always handled pain, pressure, and change. Work was his escape, his armor. Anna, on the other hand, sought peace and stillness. After months of media attention and flashing cameras, she craved something simpler. Mornings without makeup chairs, walks through Madrid, laughter with friends who knew her before the fame. Her focus turned to new film projects in Europe, quieter, more emotional roles that allowed her to breathe again. To outsiders, it seemed like just another celebrity couple managing long-distance schedules. But those closest to them knew the truth. Something had shifted. The constant calls became fewer. Texts turned shorter. Even their rare meetings felt more like polite reunions than moments of connection. One source described it best. They weren't angry. They were just tired. Two people who cared for each other but didn't know how to meet in the middle anymore. Then came that weekend in late spring, the one that changed everything. Ana had planned a short break in Spain. She wanted to escape the cameras, the interviews, the constant noise of Hollywood. She invited Tom to join her, just a few days to disconnect, to remember what they once had. But Tom was already in deep pre-production mode. His days were packed, his commitments set months ahead. He couldn't walk away, not even for a week, one insider revealed. When Ana boarded her flight to Madrid, she carried more than just luggage. She carried the weight of a decision she hadn't yet spoken aloud. And when she landed, surrounded by familiar faces and the calm of her home country, she realized something painful. She wasn't sure she wanted to go back. Meanwhile, in London, Tom felt her absence differently. Friends noticed he became quieter. His team said he was focused, but distant, pushing himself harder in training, as if motion itself could drown out emotion. There wasn't a dramatic argument or public meltdown. No angry phone calls or cryptic social media posts. Their relationship didn't end with a bang. It ended with silence. Two people separated by oceans, both understanding, without saying a word, that the story had reached its final act. Those close to them described their final conversation as sad but respectful. It wasn't about blame. It was about acceptance. Ana reportedly told a friend later, "We tried, but we live in different worlds." For her, it was about freedom, the chance to rediscover herself outside the shadow of global fame. For him, it was about discipline, a need to stay the course, no matter the personal cost. Tom never spoke publicly about the breakup. He never does. But those in his circle said he was deeply affected. He didn't show it, one insider shared, but you could tell. There were moments when he'd just stare out the window, quiet. He doesn't talk about heartbreak. He works through it. Ana, meanwhile, re-emerged months later, radiant, confident, moving forward. Yet, those who knew her best say there was still a softness in her tone when Tom's name came up. No bitterness. Just nostalgia, because not every ending needs anger. Sometimes love doesn't die. It just runs out of road. And for Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas, that road ended not with fireworks, but with silence. The kind that follows when two people love each other deeply, but realize that love alone isn't enough. It was the breaking point. Not loud, not cruel, but final. When the story ended, there was no dramatic press conference, no public breakup statement, just a quiet fade out. After months of whispers, headlines, and speculation, Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas went their separate ways. But instead of retreating from the world, both chose to face the silence differently. One with reinvention, and the other with relentless focus. For Ana de Armas, heartbreak didn't destroy her. It transformed her. She took the pain, the confusion, and the weight of lost love and turned it into fuel. She began choosing roles that reflected pieces of her soul, complex, emotional, and deeply human. From psychological thrillers to intimate dramas, Anna began to show the world a version of herself that wasn't just beautiful, but powerful. Her defining moment came with Blonde, the controversial biopic where she played Marilyn Monroe. It wasn't just another role, it was a release. Every tear, every expression, every silent breakdown on screen carried the emotions she'd held in for months. Critics called it haunting, raw, and unforgettable. For Anna, it was therapy. In interviews, she began to speak more openly about peace and identity. "It's not about perfection," she said softly once. "It's about peace." Those words resonated with millions because they came from someone who had lived through chaos and found calm. Away from the lights, Anna's life became simpler. She spent more time in Spain, reconnecting with her roots, walking through Madrid's old streets without security or photographers. Friends say she smiled more, laughed louder, and seemed freer than ever before. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was a beginning. One she had written for herself. For Tom Cruise, the path after love looked very different. Where Anna found peace in slowing down, Tom found comfort in acceleration. He threw himself back into what he knew best: work. The stunts, the scripts, the endless motion of film production became his way of healing. His dedication to Top Gun Maverick was legendary. He wasn't just starring in it, he was living it. The film became more than a sequel. It was his comeback, his redemption arc. On screen, he played a man haunted by time and loss, determined to prove he still belonged in the sky. Off-screen, that story wasn't so different. Every interview, every fan moment, every smile on the red carpet carried a quiet weight. Reporters described him as focused and unstoppable. But those who knew him personally noticed something else: a slight distance, a quiet restraint behind his polished exterior. "He channels everything into work," one longtime associate said. "That's how he deals with heartbreak. He flies higher," and it worked. Top Gun. Maverick shattered box office records, re-establishing Tom as Hollywood's untouchable star. Yet amid all the applause, there was still an unmistakable loneliness, the kind that only a few ever see. Despite the separation, neither Tom nor Anna ever spoke negatively about the other. There were no bitter comments, no blame games, only respect. Anna once mentioned in a private interview that she had deep respect for Tom and that some connections stay with you forever. It was subtle but sincere, the kind of statement that says everything without saying much at all. Tom, true to his nature, stayed silent, but his friends claimed he followed her career closely. He was proud of her, one insider said. He admired her talent and how she carried herself afterward. In an industry built on noise and scandal, their silence spoke volumes. It wasn't about resentment, it was about understanding. Two people who had shared something real, who had helped each other grow, and who chose to move forward with dignity. For Anna, life after love meant rediscovery. For Tom, it meant rededication. Different roads, but both leading toward strength. And though their paths no longer crossed, there was still something invisible connecting them, a shared memory, a silent gratitude. Because some stories don't need to be reignited to stay alive. They live quietly, in the echoes of who we become afterward. And for Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas, love didn't end. It simply evolved into something unspoken, but everlasting. In Hollywood, love stories appear and disappear like flashes from a camera, dazzling, momentary, and often forgotten. But some stories, though brief, leave behind a glow that never quite fades. The relationship between Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas was one of those rare stories. It wasn't its length that made it unforgettable. It was its honesty. For once, the world saw two people who weren't playing characters, who weren't acting for the cameras, but who were simply human. Behind the fame, the fortune, and the perfectly tailored suits, there were two hearts trying to understand each other. Just like anyone else, their story reminded everyone that love doesn't always bow to power, success, or glamour. Even the biggest stars in the world can't escape the simple struggles of connection, distance, time, and the weight of expectation. They proved that fame doesn't make relationships easier. If anything, it makes them more fragile. When the news of their separation spread, fans didn't react with judgment. They reacted with empathy. People saw reflections of their own heartbreaks, their own almost forever moments, mirrored in this Hollywood love story. Because at its core, it wasn't about celebrity. It was about being human. Today, both Tom and Anna have moved forward, walking different roads, but still carrying the quiet lessons of what they shared. Tom Cruise remains the symbol of dedication, discipline, and cinematic greatness. He continues to redefine what it means to be an action legend, still performing his own stunts, still chasing perfection. But somewhere beneath the adrenaline and applause, there's a quieter side of him. The man who once allowed someone to step into his very guarded world. The man who, for a brief time, let emotion replace control. Ana de Armas, on the other hand, has become the face of bold transformation. Fearless and authentic, she has risen among Hollywood's finest, not by following trends, but by breaking them. Each film she takes feels like another layer of herself, open, raw, and unfiltered. Her strength lies not just in her beauty, but in her truth. She learned to protect her peace, to find balance in an industry that never stops moving. And yet, for all their success and growth, there's a part of their story that remains suspended in memory, untouched, unspoiled, like a beautiful photograph frozen in time. Somewhere in those memories, there's probably a quiet moment that still plays like a final movie reel. The two of them standing under soft lights, maybe on a balcony after a long shoot, no cameras, no fans, just silence. A farewell without anger, without drama, just two people acknowledging that something beautiful had run its course. That image, calm, graceful, and honest, became the true legacy of their love. Because in the end, their story wasn't about heartbreak or failure. It was about timing, about two people meeting exactly when they were meant to, changing each other in ways the world may never fully see. Anna learned the power of boundaries and the beauty of choosing peace over pressure. Tom rediscovered vulnerability, the part of himself he rarely showed the world. They entered each other's lives like two shooting stars, bright, brief, unforgettable. And though they continued on separate paths, the light they created still lingers. In a world obsessed with drama, their ending was different. It wasn't explosive, it was elegant. It was a reminder that not all endings have to be tragic. Some are simply complete. Their story will always stand as a quiet lesson in love. That sometimes the most powerful connections aren't the ones that last forever, but the ones that change us forever. And perhaps, somewhere between the bright lights of Hollywood and the stillness of memory, both Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas still carry that one shared truth, that for a moment in time, their worlds collided, their hearts aligned, and for that short, shining chapter, they truly lived something real.